in line 13, he uses this example. At length, my pride has broken under me, and it has now left me. So I want to make sure to underline that, and I'm underlining the key points of it. A couple other things that I like to do is put a, like I spoke about a little bit earlier, I like to put a plus and a minus in place. So for example, we have greatness, that's a plus. We have a killing frost in line 6. I put a minus right next to it. Why am I doing that? Why am I taking the time to put a plus and a minus? I'm taking the time to put a plus and a minus because it's a visual reminder for me as a reader. Oh, I can even add it all up at the end. I can say, oh, there's approximately 10 minuses in the first part and 3 or 4 pluses, and then there's another 10 minuses at the last 10 lines. Well, that's 20 minuses, 20 negative words. That's going to help me as a lawyer because remember, I have to build my case. I have to build my evidence. That's what I'm trying to do here. Also, one thing I find very interesting is the AP English test provides you with a couple line references. They give you line 5, line 10, line 15, and line 20. What I suggest to you is like you see right here. I start filling it all in. So I'm going to have 1 through, in this case, 21, 22, 23. There's a total of 23 lines. And I'm going to fill them all in. Why am I going to take the time to do that? I'm going to take the time to do that because that's a point of reference for me. When I'm doing my essay, I can come back and use an example. I can say, in line 16, he talks about how the pomp and glory of this world, I hate ye. A strong, strong statement. Studies have shown that on the SAT and the AP English test, what happens is the correct parts that are being focused on are 2 lines down after their reference points or 2 lines up. When I have it all marked up and I have those in place, I can easily reference them. Also, something to think about is I want to take a look at some of the lines and I want to put in a quick word that it reminds me of. So for example, we have this one on line 12. But for beyond my depth, my high-blown pride at length broke under me. It goes from 12 to 13. When I see that, I write the word regret right next to it. He has a regret about what's happened to his pride. Also, I want to think to myself, particularly for poems, there are particular strategies for poems. For poems, I have to think to myself, why do they have pauses in place? Well, the reason why they have them in place, for example, here we have one on line 8. His greatness is a ripening. That's put in there by Shakespeare to call attention to it. Something is a ripening thing, like a banana, for example. He was just ready for it at this moment in time. So I have to think to myself, oh, he's separating out the vocabulary. He's separating out the words. I have to call emphasis to it. Also, I want to think to myself about the exclamations and question marks. I have one once again on line 16 where he ends the sentence with, I hate ye. And when he says, I hate ye, what he's saying in a very strong way. And it's very important for us to underline that and say, that's an important part of this. Once again, in line 2, he says, a long farewell to all my greatness. Those are things that the author, Shakespeare, is trying to point out to us, the reader. We have to make sure that those are points that we reference in our writing. Now we're going to start talking about writing the essay. When I start writing the essay, I have to think to myself about getting organized. I have to think about a quick pre-write. Good news for you, you've already marked it up. You've already written down a couple key words. I can use those as part of my pre-write. So I use my quick words. I use the words that I've underlined, and I'm starting to think to myself about putting some of those in the correct sequence. I talked about in the beginning he has some irony. I talk about he had some conceit. I talk about his regret. So I might want to do a list of about 5 or 6 words and have them in the correct order, and that'll be a starting point for my writing. Also, I have to think to myself, in every speech and every piece of writing that you will ever do, you have to have an engaging lead. What does that mean to have an engaging lead? It means you want to pull the reader in as a writer, something that you want to think about. A great strategy that I use in all my writing classes is I tell my students, you have to have different sentence types in your writing. Nobody wants to just read statement, statement, statement. A good strategy right from the beginning, use a question. Use a question in it. So a very good thought for us. You also have to think to yourself, I have to have my main focus, my thesis statement in the first paragraph. So I have to have an engaging lead and my thesis statement in the first paragraph. So let's take a look. In this one, my first paragraph is trying to get my central point in it. So I'm going to start with the question, have you ever felt as though all of your hard work was completed without any reward for you? In Shakespeare's Henry VIII, a despondent and dismayed Cardinal Wolsey expresses his regret about his conceit and how it led to his downfall. Two things are strong in that. Number one, have you ever felt as though all your hard work, pulling the reader of your essay into it, you're asking them a question, you connect it to Shakespeare, and isn't that interesting? We're able to use a couple of the key words that we just wrote on the side, we're able to use that in our writing, very valuable for us. Then we go back to being like a lawyer. We go back to having to find the evidence. I've made my opening argument, now I've searched for my evidence, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of that vocabulary, and this is where I reference those lines. So I might say something like, in line 2, I understand as a reader that the character, the cardinal, is feeling despondent because he says, farewell to all my greatness. That's a great reference point that I can use. So I'm getting my evidence in place, and then I'm thinking to myself, how can I wrap this up? Got to wrap it up with a powerful conclusion. So my powerful conclusion is going to reinforce my main idea and leave my reader with something to think about. So you started with something to pull them in, and now on the end, you're trying to have something that they can take with them. So here's an example for us. Upon completion of Henry VIII, the frailty of the human spirit is the focus, and it's been examined. One is left to ponder, who is it that we can trust? Ourselves, our leaders, or as Shakespeare suggests, then as now, absolutely no one. Wow, that's something my reader can take from it, and that's what I want. That's how I'm going to score very well on the exam. That's what I'm looking to help you with. I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you so much.